Right now, it's easier to build software than at any point in human history. You can vibe code literally an entire app in a weekend. You can spin up a dashboard before lunch, and you can automate half of your business with AI tools you didn't even know existed 6 months ago. And that's amazing, but it's also creating a massive problem. Because there is literally a graveyard out there, a graveyard of tools that no one uses, dashboards that nobody opens, and CRMs that get built in a weekend and they're abandoned by Wednesday. And it's not because the code was bad, it's because the builder skipped the single most important question you need to answer before anything else. Today, I'm going to show you what that question is, why ignoring it is the reason most custom software fails, and I'll give you a simple framework that makes sure everything you build actually gets used, whether you're building for a client or you're building for your own team or just for yourself personally. So if you want to learn how to build software the right way with the thinking that comes before the tools, join us inside Stack Labs. The link is in the description. Or if you're a founder who wants this done for you, custom internal software designed around your specific team's needs, then that's exactly what we do at Foundana.com. All right, let's get into it. Here's what I see happening every single day. Someone gets super excited about a new tool, Lovable, Cursor, Bolt, or Claude code, and they just start building. No plan, no clarity on who it's for, just vibes and prompts. And look, I get it. The tools are so incredible right now. You can describe what you want and watch it working in front of your eyes within, a matter of minutes. That dopamine hit of seeing something come to life is crazy. I've felt it. I've been there, and I've shipped over 30 production apps using AI and no-code tools in the last 2 years. So I know what it's like. And I'm not anti-building. I love to build. But the speed that is available to us now is hiding something more dangerous. Because when building is so easy, you stop asking whether you should build it in the first place. You skip the boring questions, who it's actually for, what problem does it solve, and will anyone be using this tomorrow? And I'll be honest here, I've done this myself more times than I would like to admit. Early on at Foundana, I built a client reporting dashboard over a weekend. Beautiful thing, clean charts, real-time data, automated email summaries, and I was proud of it. I showed it to the team on Monday. Yeah, and they thought it was great, but turns out nobody ever opened it. Not once. Turns out the team didn't really need a dashboard as such. They just needed a 5-second status update they could check from Slack, for example, without switching tools. I'd built what I thought everyone wanted, but not what they actually needed. It took me about 3 weeks to realize I'd been staring at what I'd created just by myself. A year ago, the bottleneck was the build. You had an idea, but you couldn't execute it without developers, a budget, or months of planning. Today, though, the build takes a weekend. So the bottleneck has shifted. It's not, can I build this anymore? It's, should I build this and for who? And it's a shame because not many people are actually asking those questions. They're too busy shipping products. And what happens when you skip that question? You end up in a graveyard, and it's not just me. I've seen this pattern happen across dozens of clients and builders, from multi-million-pound enterprise building all the way down to individual tools that tinkerers are building themselves. So the tools change themselves about what is being built, but the mistake doesn't. It's been happening for a long time and still is today. And the reason for it is quite interesting. There's a concept in neuroscience called the cocktail party effect. In the 1950s, a researcher called Colin Cherry ran experiments at Imperial College in London, where he played 2 different audio streams into each ear simultaneously. Subjects could only process one of those streams at a time. Their brain filtered out completely the other one. But this is the interesting part. If their own name was played in the ear that was being ignored, they snapped to attention immediately, every time. Your brain is basically running this background filter. It knows what matters, it knows about your own name, and it scans for it constantly, discarding everything else. Now think about what happens when you are building software without defining who it's for. Every feature that you add, every what if I added this idea that pops into your head at 2 a.m. in the morning, it's all just noise. You can't prioritize it properly because you have no filter. You don't have that name to listen out for. So the features that you're adding, nobody's really asked for. And you optimize for screens and features and buttons and stuff that nobody really cares about. And that's why you'll end up in the graveyard. Not because you built badly, but because you're standing in a noisy room with no real filter. Just hearing all the noise listening to it all, trying to do it at once, and getting swamped with overwhelm. Quick pause. If you're thinking that you've done this before and you're liking this content, then please hit a subscribe. It helps me serve up this content for people like you each and every week. So if the problem is building without a filter, the fix is embarrassingly simple. Create a filter. Before you open any tool, before you write a single prompt, before you even sketch a wireframe, just ask that one question. Who is this for? Businesses, not my team, not people who need help with onboarding, a very specific person with a very specific problem. Lots of people miss this or gloss over it. Remember, your customer isn't always an external buyer necessarily. There are actually 3 types of customers, and one that you're building for changes everything. So, type 1 is the external customer. You're building software to sell to or to deliver them a service. Your customer could be a founder, an ops manager, a business owner, for example. They have a problem, you build the solution, and they pay you for it. Yeah. In this case, you need to define them clearly. You need to make sure that you know them well enough so that you have an idea of how they act, how they behave, and what they need. If you can't, your definition is too vague. Type 2 is an internal team member. Let's say you're a founder and you're building internal tools for your own business. This is where it gets tricky because my team isn't necessarily one person. Your ops lead needs something different from your account manager, for example. Your ops lead might need, say, a simpler way to update statuses without switching tools. Your account manager, on the other hand, might need more of an account client-facing portal. If you build for the team generically, you build for nobody specifically. Try to pick the primary user first, define them, then build. You can always add more later, but initially you need to stick to one. And type 3 is yourself. You're scratching your own itch here, which sometimes sounds, like maybe the easiest option, but there's some problems with this approach as well. You have a problem and you can't find a good solution, so you're interested in building that solution. This is a really powerful position to be in because you don't need to define the customer. You kind of know them. You understand the problem already. It's something that's, very familiar to you. You experience it yourself. You can test this immediately, and there is, a lot of benefit to this, but there's also a trap. Because you understand the problem doesn't necessarily mean you know how to articulate it, and potentially you will drift in scope because you don't just have that one problem. You probably have many problems. If you're like any other human being on the planet, you've probably got a lot of problems. So you'll add features just because they seem to expand the stuff that you need, and nobody else has a set of problems like you. They've probably got the same thing, but not all of the suite of problems. In this case, you have a risk of hyper-optimizing for you as an individual rather than something that might be useful for others. Now, not a problem if you're just building for yourself and you want an internal app, but if you're going to have other users like you, you need to be careful about this drift. So once you know which type of customer you're actually dealing with here, you need to go into something a bit more concrete about how you define them. How do you go from, I know I should think about this customer, to something more concrete that you can use on a day-to-day basis? Well, that's where the one sentence comes in. And yeah, I know it sounds a little bit simple, but I've used this literally for almost every single project that I've built more recently. And it works for me most of the time, and it keeps it simple. For example, I'm building for a specific role at a specific type of company or team who struggles with a specific problem. Let's walk through an example for each of the customer types that I mentioned earlier. So for an external customer, I'm building for founders of productized service agencies with 5 to 15 people who struggle to manage client requests across Notion, Slack, and email. You see, very specific here. An example for an internal team member might be, I'm building for my operations manager who struggles to track fulfillment across 3 warehouses without switching between 4 different tools. And last of all, let's do one for yourself. I'm building for myself, a founder running 2 businesses who needs one dashboard to show the combined cash flow, pipeline, and project statuses of all of them without opening 6 tabs every morning. Notice that in all 3, They're very specific. They name a role, they add some context, then they name the problem that we're trying to solve. That single sentence then becomes your filter for everything. Every future decision you need to make, every screen you need to design, every automation you wire up, you hold it against that sentence and you can ask, does this actually serve the person for which I'm trying to build? You'd be amazed by doing this just how many features you don't actually have to build immediately. You can deprioritize and push them, back in the backlog. And that's the whole point. The best software isn't actually the one with the most features. You'll find this. It's the one that solves the problem so well that the person can't imagine their lives without it. At Stack Labs, we have a customer persona template that takes this even further. It walks you through their demographics, their pain points, their current tools, success criteria, all of this type of stuff. It's useful, but you don't necessarily need that. Just get away with a simple one-liner like I've discussed. Now, I know you probably want to jump straight into building and that planning sounds a bit painful, but try to remember that 1 minute spent in planning can save 10 minutes in execution. So that is a 10x improvement on your time and is always worth doing. Here's a specific example to help this really hit home. In 1937, a guy called Sylvan Goldman owned a chain of grocery stores. I think they're called Humpty Dumpty stores in Oklahoma City. He had a problem. Revenue was plateauing, and he didn't just think, I need to sell more groceries, I need to market harder. He watched his customers, and specifically, he watched the women shoppers that were struggling to carry the wire baskets around the store. Especially when you're doing a big shop, they got heavier and heavier, and every item they added would cause them more pain. They'd stop shopping, literally, because their arms got tired. That was the moment he was focusing on. That was the friction, that was the pain point. So he didn't build a better basket. If I'm focusing for women shoppers and helping them improve their experience in the store so that they buy more, he needs something different, the shopping trolley. And this is when it was invented. He created the first ever shopping trolley. His patent, basically called it as a folding basket carriage, but is the shopping trolley. The funny thing is, when he first rolled them out, nobody used them. Men thought they looked weak, and women thought they looked like prams. So Goldman hired people to walk around pushing trolleys through the store, pretending to shop just to normalize it. He had to fake adoption to prove the concept. But because he'd defined that exact person so well and the friction point that they had, the design solved it right away. And within a few years, the shopping trolley became the standard in literally every grocery store in America. He made millions, not from selling groceries actually, but from licensing the trolley design out to other stores. And that wasn't because he was a genius engineer necessarily. Sure, it helped. He was able to get it built. But it was mainly because he was very clear in his customer definition and knowing the point at which their pain impacted their lives. And that's what happens when you have your one sentence. Women shoppers who are getting sore arms from shopping and carrying all of the groceries around the store. You stop adding features because they seem clever, and you just focus purely on that one problem. And you'll find that as soon as you resolve that friction, that problem specifically, adoption will come, well, maybe not naturally if it's too much of a jump and change, but it will be something that once people realize it solves their problem, they're going to take it and never look back. So here's the takeaway. Building software has never been easier. The tools are incredible, the speed is real, but speed without direction just fills the graveyard faster. Before you build anything, before you open Lovable, Claude Code, or whatever you're using to build a product these days, write down that one sentence. Define who you're building for and give yourself a filter. Because the graveyard isn't necessarily full of bad code, it's full of good code pointed at nobody. If you want to go deeper on this, the customer definition template that we use in Stack Labs is available in my community, and the link's in the description. If you're a founder who wants this thinking applied to your business, then book a call with me at foundana.com. And then just remember that defining your customer is only step one. Most people then make a second mistake. They take that clarity and use it to build a bunch of automations that technically work, but don't actually change how the business will operate. There's a massive difference between connecting a few zaps and building software that becomes the backbone of your company. So in the next video, I'll break down why automations are seemingly worthless if they're not designed in the right way, and what's replacing them now. Essentially, a carefully curated piece of software. Click to watch it now.